Yes, I am B LaRee. I write contemporary romance. Have two books of a small town series out and working on the third and final book of the series. Um, Debuted just last year in 2024, and so far so good. I'm having a
Good.
blast in this book community.
That's what you need. You need to have the support and like the and small town romances are like very popular as well, so you can't go wrong.
They are, and I didn't intend to write a small town series. I just intended to write one book and it just kind of turned into a series, but I guess that happens.
It does. What inspired Run to Me?
A song did. A lot of my books are inspired by songs. I hear a song and I get an idea because I love songs and emotional songs, and this book in particular, the song it's inspired by is very emotional, and the story just kind of carries that same theme. Uh, yeah, it came pretty quickly to me when I was writing the first book. At the beginning of writing the first book, the Run
Oh.
to Me idea came.
And it's like, oh damn it, I need to get through this book first.
I know. Like, hurry up.
Come
Like,
on.
I was so excited for this book because I had the cover concept done. I had the story and the plot point. Everything was done probably before I finished the first half of the first draft of book one. I was
Wow.
so ready for Run to Me. The
What
title was done, everything.
that normally doesn't happen really, does it, with in terms of books?
I don't know. This is my first series, but it happened to me. I was so excited for it. The main characters of this book were just like my heart characters, and I could not wait to get to their story. And yeah, it is heavy, but it's just it was so good to write. I just felt
Mhm.
really, I went through some times, don't get me wrong. There were times where I thought I couldn't get through it or I struggled, but I knew in the end that if it worked, if the story worked out the way I wanted it to, that readers would love it.
What drew you to writing in the first place?
Um, I actually was not a reader growing up, but I listened to a lot of music. My house had music instead of books. And I would kind of always extend those songs in my head and jump on the trampoline outside and create these like stories in my head, these love stories. And then I just from there went into college to write. I was like, I'm going to be a writer, having not ever been a reader. So it was just kind of a slow go in the beginning because I really, and even in college, didn't know what I was doing.
Mhm.
So I had to kind of figure it out quickly. And one of the assigned readings actually got me, like it clicked for me, that reading was fun. And it changed the way I approached writing back then. And yeah, it all kind of fell into place after that book.
Normally, you don't find that assigned readings are fun because it's books that you typically don't like.
No, it's not, and that was the thing, like everything from, I remember since I was 6 years old, we were assigned this like chapter novel and when I
Mm.
was 6 or 7. And I just did not enjoy reading it. And I don't know if it was because like I read early, like at an early age, I could read. And so when they were giving me things, I was like, this is so boring. I don't want to read this.
I can read it already.
I know, and that was the whole thing. I never could really relate to the books,
Mm.
and a lot of the assigned reading you get in school are classics and things that I just never could relate. And it wasn't until that class in college that one of the assigned readings I related and I was like, oh, I get it now. I get now. I get why people read,
It
and I've
makes
been a
sense.
reader since.
It's not just because they got given a book.
Yeah.
Got told to read
Yeah,
it.
it has to be the right book. That has to be that right book that draws you in.
How did you choose which characters to center the story around? You said they were your heart characters. How did you?
Yeah, they were. When I was writing the first book, which, of course, I love those characters just as much. But when the ideas, I knew right away, even from writing the first chapter of book one, that the second book run to me was going to be Maisie and Jensen. Like I knew it was such an easy decision to make, and it wasn't even really a choice. It was just kind of like this is going to be their book. And yeah, and I tried to thread little clues and hints and things throughout there, little breadcrumbs throughout the first book to lead toward it. And everybody knew it was coming because at the end of book one, she says something about him. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to kind of build up that anticipation for book two. And fingers crossed, I think it paid off.
Did either one of the characters come easier than the other to sort of write?
Um, I think Maisie's character came easier to me because I knew her, I knew how strong of you know, she's a strong woman. Like she's the hero of the story. And I hope that's not a spoiler, but she really is. And for herself and for the people she loves. And I think that that made writing her really fun because I
Mm,
could really get into that. Her personality is very, she's kind of abrasive and rough, and she's very sarcastic and aloof, and
perfect to
so
write.
writing her was a lot of fun to write that sort of black cat FMC. Jensen was harder because he had a lot going on. Like he had
Mm.
a lot going on internally that I had to work through and make sure came across the page without being confusing or overwhelming or too much or taking his character too far. And so he was definitely a challenge to write.
I'm glad that they both came across really well, though.
I hope so. People, you always as an author wait and you're like, oh my gosh, our reader's going to say, I didn't like this one character or like this one more or whatever. But so far, they seem to be pretty equally balanced as far as the readers accepting them as main characters.
What was your process about for writing your books? Did it change across the two books or it stayed the
It,
same?
it did. And, going into, I have started many books in my lifetime. All I Want, book one was the first one I finished. And when I wrote it, I was so excited about the premise of the book that I threw it out there in 3 months and I didn't have any expectations or deadlines or anything. And I didn't have an outline and I just went for it and let the characters kind of guide me. And when I wrote Run to Me, I, for some reason, decided I needed an outline all of a sudden. I was like, I have to have an outline or I can't write this book. And that outline, oh, it gave me grief. It really slowed me down. And I would just, because my mind is very, and this is weird for a fiction writer to say, but my mind is very literal. And
Mm.
if you put barriers in front of me, it's like you can't pass this. So the outline became a barrier that I had to play within. And finally, after a few months of just really struggling, I tossed the outline and told my developmental editor, I was like, I'm taking this back. I'm scrapping, a lot of this stuff, and we're going to kind of not start from scratch, but I just moved a lot forward in the book and started at a different place.
It's strange that a lot of people like the outlines because it keeps them on track, but it
Yeah,
can actually be actually I've put this in place as a guide, but my brain's not letting me just go
right.
screw the outline. I won't listen
I
to it.
know. And for someone like me, like I worked in the field of compliance my whole
Mhm.
career. And so rules are there for a reason,
Yeah.
but like you can't have fun with the rules. That's what my brain also says.
Mm.
So I've got to, at least for writing, just kind of toss out the rules, toss out the outline, and then I can let go and have fun.
And that's what you need to do when you're writing is
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah. Can you hear my dogs?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, good. One of them is barking. Sorry.
So, what is your approach to world and character building?
Well, for world building, like I said, I didn't intend to write a small town series. And um, once I started getting into the first book and building this fictional town in Texas, which is where I'm from originally, I just imagined what kind of town I would want to live in and
Two
just
ways to
started
go.
there, you know. I want a town that's welcoming and has quirky people and has but they're protective, you know, and it's kind of like if you're in kind of town
Yeah.
and so that's what I base it on. As for character building, um you know, that to me was something I thought I had always struggled with. And never realized like the layers that I actually would put into a character. And now when I go back and read some of my earlier stuff, I'm like, okay, I wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
You know, it wasn't terrible. But for my characters, I do a lot. I go even as far on my character sheet as like what are their hobbies, even for like side characters that come into play. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I got early on writing the first book, and this stuck with me, is when you're building a character, writing them and describing them in the way that other people see them is just as important as the way that you as the author are explain, you know, describing them. So like the main character, if she's all sunshine, she's going to see like the best in people. And so she's going to point out those qualities when someone walks in the room. And that was such good advice I got because then on my character sheet, I'm like, this is what, you know, this he's smart and he's an architect and blah, blah, blah. And the next line's like, but people see him as an egomaniac. And so I have the extra layer on there so I can kind of fully show who that person is on the page.
Do you have that character sheet done before you start writing, or is it filled out as you get to know your characters as you're writing the story?
I lay a basis down, you know, I know what their demographics are and, you know, where they live and what they do and how old they are and what they look like. And then their personality as I write starts to come out. And I'm like, oh, I like this. So, you know, I'll add it to the sheet and so I can carry it on through other books. But yeah, I really like to watch them kind of tell me who they are or show me who they are and but also through the main character's eyes.
I think if you were trying to write a character, like have everything done beforehand, I feel like it would stop you from actually like wanting to write the book because you're focusing too much on trying to already know the
Exactly. And that's the
character.
thing, like, don't give me the rule. Give me the rules in the rest of life, but don't give me the rules in this.
A suggestion, not a actual thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite moment in Run to Me to Write?
I like I actually while the emotional moments are hard,
Mm.
I do enjoy writing them. I spend a lot of time on those and then the first like spicy scenes that go into a book because that's always a big turning point in a romance book. And so, but the emotional scenes, I spend a lot of time trying to make it really translate
Mm.
and I do enjoy focusing on those. But at the same time, I like writing. I'm not a rom-com writer, but I have moments that I think are funny. And so I put them in there because you've got to have laughter to balance out the tears. And
Definitely.
so I enjoy writing those too. So I'm either sobbing or laughing really hard when I'm writing. It's one or the other.
Need both though.
You do need both. Yeah.
Which of the characters do you relate to the most and why?
I think that there's a bit of me in all of them. Like with Maisie and Run to Me, she's sarcastic, she can be dry sometimes. I'm that way sometimes. But as far as like who I put myself into as a character, there's a side character, Lucy, that she's sunshine, and I don't consider myself sunshine, but her some of the things that she deals with and we only learned this in this little novella I wrote that's a prequel. Um, that some of the things that she deals with and the issues she faces are straight from me. So that was very cathartic to kind of to put my business out there.
Sort of, it's like a little bit of therapy as well, sometimes with writing as well. You can
Exactly.
just put yourself in and release
Yeah,
everything that you're dealing with.
exactly.
How has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself, if it has?
I'm definitely more confident in my writing. For sure. Um, that's the biggest change. And then the other one is, I'm a very slow burn when it comes to social media and engaging with people. I really am. And because I tend to focus on developing just relationships and not trying to grow a
Mm,
following. Does that make sense?
yes, it
And so
does.
I'm like, oh yeah, I forget I'm here to market a book and not just make friends. So that's kind of hard for me and kind of expanding, and reaching out to people and being initiating contact and all that kind of stuff. But I'm doing it and I feel like I'm getting better at it because I'm the person that's like, I'm going to leave a comment but then I'm going to delete it and not really leave it because I'm scared that it's going to come across wrong or whatever.
That always like you always that in the back of your mind have that sort of like, oh, is people going to take that what I say the right way?
Exactly.
Oh, flip side of social media sometimes.
Well, it's hard because there's no tone and inflection,
Mm.
and I mean, you have emojis, but not everyone uses them. So I see a comment and I'm like, are they mad at me? Are they yelling at me?
Add an emoji, please, so it can tell me what what tone you're saying
I
this
need
comment
a
in.
very defined sarcasm emoji so I know.
Or in brackets, sarcastic comment
Yes,
given.
something.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you in your writing?
Oh, I don't know. Gosh, I read so much. Um, I have a couple of different authors that I enjoy like they're on different ends of the spectrum. So like Pippa Grant, she writes rom-coms and I
Yeah.
just think she's absolutely hilarious. And I love her stuff. And then LA Farrow, she writes more of kind of the emotional,
Mm.
stories and kind of have just yeah, they're just so they're opposite ends of the spectrum, but I really like both of their writing. I don't know if it's necessarily inspires me, but I'm just like I think it's more just like admiration.
Yeah.
You know?
But I wish I could write something like them.
Well, yeah,
Or
like
have that same impact on readers when that
exactly.
you get when
Yeah.
you read them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that their success in their books and everything else inspire me for sure as an author trying to come up in this writing world. Um, definitely.
Mm. Is there any advice you would give a writer working on their first book? You did give us a little slice of advice that you got given as well.
Yeah, yeah, that so my advice would be know know what you're doing. know know what you're doing. So like reach out to people, find people to help you, lean on other authors. Don't be afraid to ask questions and put yourself out there because like I said, I came into this knowing nothing. I
Mm.
finished the first draft of All I Want at the end of 2023. I didn't even know Bookstagram was a thing when I finished that draft. Like that's how clueless I was.
Wow.
I was like, oh,
Mm.
I read all these books and I've always started writing books, so I'm just going to write one and so I did and then what?
Yeah,
Now what do I do?
I've got it here. What do I
I
do with it
know
now?
I'm here and I don't have anyone to tell. So I found people, and I joined Instagram and I started slowly building a community and I found my developmental editor and my found or she, she really helped me a lot. I give her a lot of credit for everything. But but I knew I couldn't do it alone.
Mm,
And I'm such an independent person that it was a struggle for me to be like, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing.
yeah.
So I'm like, if you can just put yourself forward and
Mm,
ask for the help, like, don't be shy. There's plenty of authors out there that are more than willing to say, here's what worked for me, or here's what didn't, at least so you can try different things. And that's the thing, like
yeah.
me, I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound like something I would do, but I'll give it a shot or I'll look into it. But I think it's helpful. And now I try to pay it forward as much as I can
Mm.
because so many people have helped me this past year, like so many people. And I'm like, okay, I got to help the next group coming in because, everybody, we're all in it together.
You definitely it's right, the writing process is, like, so isolating, and then you actually when after you finish, it's like, "Oh, I do actually need some much professional people to help me."
Yes.
And it's like, "But I don't
Yes.
really wanna put myself out there too much because 'cause I'm not too sure."
I know. Yeah, it's a very isolating process. And especially like, I've worked from home long before everybody else did. I think I've worked from home since like 2014. So I've always just kind of been like doing my thing. But and it was fine, I have family, friends, different things like that. But writing is something that no one understands except other authors.
Yeah.
So if you don't have people to bounce things off of or to ask or to, kind of keep you sane through the process, it is very lonely. So
Mm.
I'm glad now that I have a group of author friends that, keep me
Same.
focused and entertained.
Do you have a favorite writing snack or drink?
I do. I actually I'm banning myself from my favorite snack because I'm a cookie eater. I will eat cookies like no one's business. And every time I get stuck on a thought or can't figure out like where am I going with this, even a sentence, I would go to the kitchen and eat one cookie. And after so many trips to the kitchen, 2024 was not kind to me. So I am on a cookie ban. And then as far as drinks goes, I have to have coffee. I drink coffee all the time. I try to stop by like 8 o'clock at night, but sometimes it doesn't work. It depends on how late. I'm a night owl. I do most of my writing at night.
Mm.
So I will drink coffee until the pot is empty.
And do you switch to decaf or still straight
I
coffee?
don't. I don't switch to decaf, and that's terrible. I probably should because
Oh,
I
but
know it's not the caffeine. At one point, I don't think the caffeine works anymore. I
no,
think it's
probably
just
not. As long
I
as
am
it doesn't affect
intolerant.
you going to sleep, it's fine.
I know. Well, that's the thing. How do you sleep after all that? Especially, when you stop writing, my brain is just still going. So
Mm.
I get in bed and I'm like, well, maybe I should pull out my notes app and make notes about, what I was going to do next in the book. And yeah, it's never ending.
Don't want to forget the good thoughts as well. Notes app or notebook right next to you.
I have notes app. I do voice notes all the time. I have so many voice notes on my phone that are not organized or labeled. So I have to scroll through
Oh
weeks and
no.
weeks of voice notes to find that one thing I thought of 2 months ago.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
It is. My brain, yeah.
Do you play music while you write? And if you do you have a
Um,
favorite genre?
when I'm drafting
Mm.
initially, it has to be quiet. Like I have to get super focused. I can't have any distractions. Um, but when I go back to revise or review like something I've already written, depending on the scene, I will play a mood song
Yeah.
to get me into it because then I can work on things like more of the emotion and the actions and how they're gazing into each other's eyes
Right.
and everything else. And yeah, I need a song to kind of help me build that moment.
Is it
So,
an
but
instrument?
otherwise, and when I
Is it,
proofread, I definitely have on Disney instrumentals.
I was gonna say, do you listen to instrumentals or music with lyrics while you're drafting?
Well, when I'm doing scene reviews like that, I'll listen to songs with lyrics. But when I'm editing, like doing my final edits or when I'm proofreading, Disney instrumentals. That's I don't know what it is about it, but and I think it's just because I know all the songs, so in my head I'm singing the lyrics,
You
but
don't need to
um
have any assistance singing along at all.
it's just I don't know what it is. It's my comfort music.
You always need the comfort music though.
Yeah.
And my final question is, who has been the biggest supporter of your writing?
Absolutely, my husband and I have daughters, and they have seen me start so many books, so finishing, they've just been so supportive. My husband, he'll go fishing. He took up fishing, so he'll go fishing on the weekends and just let me write. And it's so nice. And he'll make dinner. And like if I'm in the zone, he leaves me alone and he just kind of takes care of everything quietly in the background, which is hard for him because he is not a quiet person, but he really tries. But he's so sweet. He buys flowers that match, like bouquets that match the book cover for
That's so
release
sweet.
day, and it's very sweet.
You need your family in that to support you, definitely in the right with writing and everything.
Absolutely. The rest of the family, they don't, like I said, I didn't come from a family of readers, so they're just kind of like, oh, cool. Cool, you read a book. But of
Don't have
course,
to
I
read
don't
it.
want them reading my book anyway.
So some degree of separation before with
Yeah,
reading.
exactly.
Don't need to read the book. It's all good.
Yeah. My mom was like, I bought your book. And I thought, but you don't read? But I appreciate the support.
Yeah. You
But I'm
can
just,
buy it. You don't have to read it. That's all right.
yeah, she won't. She won't read it.